Can you envision a world where you and your family in America and those who immigrated from Africa and the Caribbean could receive immersive financial education and invest in fractional and whole shares of U.S. publicly traded companies? That time has come. Wakeza. Finally, from your mobile phone, you can start investing in building wealth. Wakeza. Just sign up for the Wakeza app and join the Wakeza community to receive ongoing adult and youth financial education from licensed advisors. Wakeza. You become a financially educated and protected investor. Wakeza has one empowering objective: creating financial inclusion and your family's generational wealth for the African diaspora. Wakeza.
Money's scary.
I see a lot of people struggling with how to manage their money.
They aren't keeping track of how much money is coming in and how much is going out.
Most kids don't know how to handle money.
I'm a big spender, not much of a saver, and I think if I had seen something modeled differently earlier, then I probably would have a different relationship with money.
I think World of Money gives them that basis, that financial literacy that they need.
World of Money is a youth financial education training institute. It operates Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4:45 in July of each year.
We go in the morning, we meet with our classroom leader.
Each day is different and each day has a theme and focus. So some days we'll be talking about banking, other days we'll be talking about stocks and bonds.
I did learn a lot about credit scores,
401ks,
gaining interest on money, making your money work for you,
how to save your money,
checkings accounts and savings accounts,
and yeah, how to live a better life.
My name is William and Law. Handling money is a big responsibility, and it should be held in the hands of a responsible person.
Hi, my name is Rachel. I feel like I just graduated from business school, like real university business school.
Just having role models like that come and share their knowledge with us is one example between, learning, gaining success, and then giving back.
And it's just a straight, long line.
Also, one of the cool things that our students learn is Mandarin Chinese.
The 5 tenets of World of Money: learn, earn, save, invest, and donate.
It's helped me become more aware of how much I'm spending and how much I'm saving and how much I'm giving.
It's more about, yes, you had an opportunity to earn the money. Now, what do you do to improve the lives of those that are around you and, the future generations?
You need to give as your resources, whether that's money or your time, and that's more important than anything.
We have visited the White House about 3 times. Our Young Mogul Board of Directors joined me as I testified on Capitol Hill to talk to Congress about financial education. We've opened or closed the NASDAQ Stock Exchange 4 times. We were on CNBC, we have been on MSNBC, we have appeared on ABC, NBC.
I feel like financial literacy is one of the key components in life. No matter what career path you choose, you will definitely have to encounter finance or any type of financial components in your life, such as whenever you're making your first purchase for your home, which was discussed during the workshops.
Moguls and young moguls, I dare you to become financially successful.
Miss Lamb grooms us to be ambitious, and I think that the tools that she gives us at World of Money are helpful in making sure that those ambitions can be sustained.
After becoming a billionaire, I will invest my money in charities to build schools worldwide that will teach finance.
It's an amazing program. It's done so much more than just teach me about money. It's taught me about being professional, about working hard, about success.
It's worth the time and worth the energy, and I think that your children one day will thank you for it.
And good day. Hello, my name is Sabrina Lamb, and I am the founder and CEO of worldofmoney.org, the leading provider of immersive financial education, and the CEO of Wakeza, that provides family financial education, especially for Black immigrants and native-born African Americans. So welcome to Planet Wakeza, a podcast dedicated to providing safe, informative spaces to deepen our understanding of money and how it impacts our lives and that of our loved ones. There are so many discussions regarding money. And I'm really excited about that. Subjects about budgeting and insurance and home ownership and investing. But I believe before we utilize any of those financial services, that we first need to unpack our understanding of our own psyche and our own self-worth. I'm also the author of Do I Look Like a ATM? A Parent's Guide to Raising Financially Responsible African American Children. So you have a treat waiting for you, a treat in store. So when it comes to money, money matters. I'm going to ask you a question. Are you a lioness who leads a tribe, a dolphin who ducks and dives, or an ostrich who buries its head in the sand? What is your money personality? Well, this first of a kind book explores and unpacks the intricate world of money archetypes in Black families in South Africa. And I'm going to ask our featured expert if it can actually extend throughout the diaspora. So our featured expert is Vangile Makwakwa, the founder of Wealthy Money and a personal finance coach and online course creator who teaches women, and I dare say men, how to unlock their inner money guru, fall in love with your bank account, and live your best life. She does that through her hashtag Money Magic online course, one-on-one coaching, and international retreats. Now, she already had a recent bestseller. She authored Heart, Mind, and Money Using Emotional Intelligence for Financial Success. She has a finance degree and an MBA and started her personal finance journey by paying off $60,000 in debt. She's been traveling for 15 years and is building her company as she travels and lives in different countries. And she also, and really appreciate her for Vangile for this, she also led global meditations for World of Money's Born Rich Summit. So Vangile is our guest expert today. Welcome, Vangile. And first tell us, where in the world are you right now?
I am actually back home. I am in Johannesburg. I think this is the first time that most people are getting me, and the answer is I am in South Africa. It's actually kind of nice.
Well, that is breaking news. That is breaking news. So, Vangile, we have a lot to get into. I just really had a deep dive in terms of what is your money personality. Brilliant, recommended. Everyone get it. It's on Amazon. But what is your story? Yes. What is your story, though, in terms of the urgency of this issue? What is your expertise in terms of writing this from a personal standpoint?
Well, I think I wrote this from a personal standpoint because, as I say in the book, one of the things that I was noticing is that financial literacy, should I say, is always taught from the point of view of the Western lens, which is that we are individuals, that all it is about making money from an individualistic standpoint. And it never ever takes into account the fact that the majority of the world's population is actually making money, and it's the way that we make money, save money, and invest money is impacted by our family and our communities, right? That sometimes people take on jobs not because they want to take on jobs, but because the family needs them. And it's not just your immediate family, that most of this world's population is also taking into account your grandmother, your aunt, your uncles. And how does that then start to shape your family of origin? How does that start to also shape your money personality? Because you're not just living for yourself, that we are a collective people, the majority of us. I would say it's only in the West that we see this really, really individualistic take on life. But really, most of us are making financial decisions based on the collective. and our families. And also I wrote this book also with the lens of looking at how Black families, by the way, I mention a lot about slavery, Jim Crow laws, all that in the book as well, because I'm looking at Black families from Rwanda, from other parts of the world, right, as well as South Africa, to see how does this history of oppression then start to shape the Black family in different countries, and how would that then shape our money archetypes as Black people living within our families, and also trying to balance this new world that we find ourselves in, where we are dealing with globalization, where we are dealing with inflation and also stagnant salaries. What does that mean for us? And given the way that we react to trauma based on past events, and especially around oppression, how can we then start to work collectively as a people to build generational wealth? So in the last chapters, I start to talk about that, like, what does that look like? How do you then build wealth as you start to heal your personality? And in the final chapter, I actually talk about my dad and his family, how 80 extended families came together to start saving together, and how that started to break Black tax for my generation. So
okay,
that
don't give away all the jewels just yet. Wait. So go back to your journey, personal journey, the personal money trauma that you experienced.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what I saw, and I start with this in the introduction, right? Growing up, I saw my mother as the breadwinner, right? Even though other family members were educated on both sides, my mom and my dad's side of the family, I was not the first generation. My generation was not the first generation on both sides to go to university and to even travel, right? Because my parents' generation did that for us. But what I saw growing up was that there's usually one or two family members out of, say, maybe 10 siblings or 9 siblings, or in my mom's case, 4 other siblings, that then take on the breadwinner role and start to look after the other extended family members, including grandmothers and great-grandparents, right? And for those listening, that is what we call Black tax, right? So it's kind of like the one that succeeds usually ends up looking after other family members that are not as successful and that probably need support. So seeing that, what I saw was my mom going more and more resentful, of this entire process. And then my uncle at the time, because I was born during apartheid and then obviously went to school started really primary school as apartheid was ending. But then my uncle came back from exile, and my mother, him having gone to white schools, right? And having studied in Europe, the idea and the belief was that he will be great with money because he studied in the West. So then my mother gave everything to my uncle and said, it is your turn to look after the family, right? And so my uncle ended up looking after my sister, myself, my mom, so many family members. Over time, I saw how that broke my family, because we're talking about, at one point, I think it was about 5, 6 different adults living on one adult's salary. And then my sister and I, so 2 kids. And let me also be clear that like all these other adults had university degrees and were working. But then my uncle bought this massive place, and he believed that it was his job to look after the family. So he took on more responsibility than he should have. And at the end of the day, it started to break the family, to the point where to this day, my mom's family is completely fractured. Right? But then I also had, growing up, this completely different example of my dad's family, where my grandmother was like, no, there will be none of that. Everybody will look after themselves, and we're going to figure out a way to to not have this Black tax situation, but to basically build generational wealth and find ways for every family to become self-sufficient, but also use the collective power of the family to grow. So it's not just the individual looking after everyone, but everyone looking after themselves and then coming together in the collective, right? And I saw how they are still strong as a family. So for me, my trauma then became, oh my gosh, what if I make money and I'm expected to look after the family? And that was exactly what was expected of me. When I graduated with my MBA from the Simmons School of Management in Boston, Massachusetts, my uncle literally called me and said, it is now your turn to look after the family. The family being 5 kids. I still don't have kids at the moment, right? I wasn't married, but there were so many other family members that expected me, even though they had degrees and they had careers, to step in and look after them. Because the idea again was that, well, you've gone to study in the US, so you must have lots of money. You've done this MBA, you must be making lots of money. So your job is to give back to the family. So for me,
what was your response? What was your response?
My response was like, I don't think so. No, it was no. And from that has come so, how do I even talk about this? It's like, I talk about it in the book. There's been such an emotional and visceral response, and people have blamed my mother. There's been a lot that has happened in my family because of that, right? But at the same time, I think there's been a lot of people, I think, that I've empowered other cousins who also then got educated to say, this is not the way that we want to move forward as a family. We need to start talking about generational wealth and what it means to build generational wealth, not just in terms of like you're making an income and then you're helping everyone else, but what does it mean to build and invest and start thinking of future generations and what we're leaving for future generations, you know? And an example of that is recently, I didn't know my mother was listening to me when I was talking. She bought my sister and I land last year, and she was like, this is for my future grandchildren. We're going to build on there and start generating rental income. And that is going to go into a trust for my future grandchildren. I was like, what do you know about this? Like, I didn't even know you've been listening.
Well, what do you think? And this is really interesting because there is throughout the African diaspora this deep-seated expectation of what others expect that we should do with our money to help them. And like you said, there were family members that had their own degrees, were earning their own professions, but still there was an expectation that it was your duty to sacrifice your financial life and well-being for them. And that is, I see that throughout the African diaspora in the Caribbean, that you're expected to go to the West, earn lots of money and send all of that money home. And there are adults who are not taking reins of their own liberation. And so that was a traumatic, as you detail in the book, it was a very traumatic experience for you. And so what do you think, how do you think they are, people with those kind of expectations of others, family members or not, that you're supposed to take care of them? And as you said, you're at university, just graduating, just stepping out on your own. And then you have 8 people expecting for you to send money and take care of adults in South Africa. What do you think what's the mindset that they have? And we're going to get into the money archetypes that you detail in the book, that Uncle so-and-so thought it was his duty to pick up the phone and say, how are you, Vangile? When can we expect the money? What's going on in their brain?
Well, because it had been done to my uncle and it had been done to my mom.
Was this the same uncle that left the house?
Yes.
This was the same uncle. Okay. All right.
Yes.
Well, he should know better. He should know better. Everyone read the book. There's this passage in the book where the uncle should have known better not to call you because he disappeared. Go ahead. I'm giving it all
Right?
away.
So in the book, I talk about how my uncle actually quit his job. My mother did too, to stop the responsibility, because if they didn't have jobs, then they wouldn't have the responsibility. And my uncle actually left the house to my family, right? To his family, and went to go get a whole new house. He left his own house because the responsibility was too intense. And he was very scared to set boundaries because he was scared to lose the love of the family, right?
But was
So
that love? Was that love? Was that love?
Pardon?
Was that love? He was afraid to lose the love of the money, of the family. And you actually write that passage in the book. You were afraid of losing the love, but
Yes.
is that love?
I know that it's not, right? But I kid you not, Sabrina, even yesterday I had a client on a call, seriously, who was scared to set boundaries with family, and she was crying and in tears that if she does set boundaries with her family and she does make money and then she starts setting boundaries and she's like, no, then the family will say you're selfish, you're greedy, and then they will cut her off, right? We don't talk enough about that because it's not just the logical thing. Because remember, we're a collective people, just like you said, with the Caribbean, and I've lived in the Caribbean, right? With the Caribbean, with the African continent. I know a lot of my Asian friends also struggle with this. Is that we don't want to disappoint our families because, oh my gosh, what if they start thinking of us as selfish, as greedy, as though we don't want to be part of the collective, we don't want to be part of the community, which is why my uncle felt better just leaving his own house to his family and going to get a brand new house. Didn't even want us to know where he was living. So with his family, and it wasn't even too far, by the way, it was maybe about 5 or 6 miles away. But he literally was trying to hide so that people don't ask and he doesn't have to say no. And I think most of us, especially women of all races, have experienced this, where you don't want to say no because it may ruin the friendship. It may ruin the relationship. It's not necessarily family, and it may not necessarily be about money, but you don't want to make it awkward. So you just keep giving and keep saying yes. And then the resentment builds up, which is why over time, people just like have these outbursts, right? So where did my uncle learn it from? I think we learn it from previous generations, right? It's that if we look at the history of Black tax, as Black people around the world, how have we been able to really overcome such insurmountable difficulties, right? It's that the best amongst us was often sent off to the US, to the UK, somewhere. They made money, then they sent money home, and that money was used to educate the others. And then the idea was that they would all then get out of poverty and then go and join the other, the one that was sent first, and then they would continue to help, and that money would be sent back home. And people would then eventually lift each other out of poverty. But then as we are human, right? Things happen. Someone decides, oh, well, now that I've got my piece of the pie, cool, that one is doing great. The first one that was sending money, they can just continue. I'm just going to go off and do my own thing. And not all of us are also built for that breadwinner role, which I talk about in the book, right? So then you end up leaving the one breadwinner, and then now we have this legacy of the one, the very best, always sending home, but others are allowed to just kind of coast, so to speak.
So really great points. Again, we are with Vangile Makwakwa. She is a global money personality, money trauma expert. She has led global meditations at World of Money for years. And her new book, she had another best-selling book, but her new book is What is Your Money Personality, that offers new depth and new expertise. So it's really, really informative. And I encourage everyone to purchase it. It's on Amazon.com. How does this relate to gender roles in terms of lack of boundaries on how we interact with money and let other people step over our boundaries and our ability or inability to say yes or no?
I love this question because I talk about this in the book, right? Gender roles are really, really huge. Like, I think what I have found, and I've seen this also in the Caribbean, is that the majority of the breadwinners that end up sending the money home most times end up being the women, right? And I think a huge part of it is there is this expectation that as the woman, you are the nurturer, you are the carer. And we tend to be closer to our mothers at times. We feel their pain, right? We know, especially as Black women, what it is as we grow older, what it is to be a Black woman in this world, right? So we're less likely to be like, no, I'm not going to send money home and not take care of my mother, right? So when we're sending money home, we're also sending money home to look after our family, our aunts, our mothers, our kids. Sometimes some women leave kids back home with the mother. So it tends to affect most of us very, very deeply. But here's the thing. This is something else that I also mentioned in the book, is that women are underpaid globally, right? So you are sending money home already from such a small paycheck, right? Compared to our fellow men on this planet who tend to be paid more than us. So that is challenging. So it leaves us in a worse off position to create generational wealth, because to create generational wealth, we need a higher income, right? Because doesn't matter what's happening, even if you cut your expenses, you still need to eat and food prices are going up, right? And we tend to be the most underpaid, especially Black women. So now you're already starting from being the most underpaid, but you're paying the same amount for food and basic services. What's left over, you're then sending home. What do you have left over to save and invest? What are we working with? And also, let's not forget that just in terms of negotiations, most of the time, Black women tend not to be able to, we're not given the same amount of money as our white counterparts most times, right? And so that also impacts us in terms of how we negotiate and what we get, regardless of how much student loans we take on, right? So we're often the most educated group, but the most underpaid. So that impacts us as well. And it stops us from actually building for future generations. And that's a conversation that needs to truly, truly be had. It's not just about what we're earning today that is impacted, right? And we're not just impacted in the present moment, it's also our future generations that are being impacted, because what do we have to leave in terms of a legacy?
Absolutely. And this conversation is live streaming across all of a lot of social media, including LinkedIn. And there may be entrepreneurs who are listening or will listen. And you write about it in the book about the point that you just made in terms of women, particularly women entrepreneurs, giving away their services, underpricing their services, or giving it away for free because of the lack of self-worth that they have. And then from a savings lens, I've always said we can teach savings till the cows come home. If you don't believe your life is worth saving, you will not save a nickel. You say what?
Okay, so I agree with that, but I'm saying, how do I believe my life is worth saving if, say, my mother is in a village somewhere and she's not eating, right? What is there to save? At the end of the day, I'm a human, and I have been brought up in a very collective society where we even say, umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu, which is a person because of other people. So the first thing that I'm going to do is make sure that my mom, my aunts, my cousins, people around me are fed, right? And then I will think of savings, right? So it's not just, and this is why I'm saying, like, it's so nuanced, because in the West, yes, you can save, it's individualistic. But for me, it's like, if I'm hearing that someone back home, my sister, my cousins, someone needs help, I can't just turn a blind eye. I haven't been brought up in that way. It's how we are brought up, right? So that still impacts us. But yes, I agree that we have to find a way to figure out how to save, which is why I wrote this book, because we all have different personalities and money personalities. And what I wanted people to see is to see what are your core wounds around your family, and when do you need to be setting those boundaries. That some people, if someone's young and they are healthy, you set those boundaries. Like if my 18-year-old cousin comes to me and he's telling me things, and this is a true story, then I'm like, go get a job. I'm not reacting in the same way as when my 80-something-year-old aunt comes to me and needs something. So it's about learning how to set those boundaries, when to set those boundaries, and what to save, and also having conversations with family members to say, even back home, right? For those sending money back home, is to say, this is how much I make, and this is how much I can contribute, right? Everyone else that is of working age, they're going to have to figure out how to work and do their own thing so that they can support themselves. But this money, this is what I'm sending home, and this is what I hope it will be used for. You can't control how people use the money once they have it, right? But you just let them know that this is what I will be consistently sending back home, and maybe start having conversations around, well, I know that when certain things are needed at home, when there are certain celebrations, I will be asked for extra money. So how do you plan for that and preempt it so that it doesn't, I guess, divert you from the end goal, which I will keep saying, the end goal is also that we are looking out for future generations. Part of why we keep replaying certain things as a community globally is because there is this understanding that we will stay in certain jobs because our families need us back home. But if we can find a way that we no longer have to dance to the beat of other people, because we have now created our family trusts, we now have sorted out future generations, it becomes so much easier to start dictating what we're going to do with our money and what we're going to do with our futures, and for kids to choose the career path that they want to choose.
If you could slightly pivot to those business owners that are trying to heal their money trauma and feel that it's in their best interest to either underprice or give away their products and services.
Yes, I love this. So there is two money personalities that I talk about. Several money, I guess the others also do this, but two that are very, very prone to underpricing. The first one is the sweet one archetype. I think the core wounding that gets us to underprice, right, is the belief that we are not good enough. So sometimes we find ourselves, we may have grown up in households where we were not affirmed, or we grow up in a society where we don't see people who look like us making the kind of money that we want to make. And so then we believe that nobody can pay our products and services, or people cannot afford our products and services, or that we still have to prove ourselves, even though we are good enough, but we don't believe we are. So we end up believing that we have to keep proving ourselves. And what we do is we end up undercharging. So we offer great services for a pittance of the price. And I know for a fact that was one of the things that I struggled with, which was that I really believed that nobody would pay me what I wanted, because I kept getting told in South Africa that Black women will not pay for your services. Black women don't have money. They can't afford you, And I thought, oh my gosh, I have to charge like a small little bit of money because I'm serving my community. But what ends up happening in that case, because we have this wound, is it means that we have a harder time scaling our businesses and actually growing our businesses. And what I see is often we end up failing at entrepreneurship, not because we end up thinking we're terrible at entrepreneurship, but it's merely because we are underpricing, because When you're underpriced, you cannot get the support that you need. You can't pay for the mentors that you need. You can't get the additional education that you need, software that you need. You can't buy it. You can't even pay for your staff, right? You can't build a proper team. So what ends up happening is that it looks like you are terrible at what you do, which then fulfills the prophecy that you are not good enough. You end up thinking there's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. And I still have to prove myself. And it just becomes this vicious cycle. So the one thing that I recommend for people is to really heal the not good enough wound, right? And the belief that people will not pay you for your services, and maybe that the community or the tribe that you're serving cannot afford your products and services. Those were the three things that I really needed to heal. And then a fourth one that I think I very rarely hear people talk about this, right? But I had this insidious belief that as a Black woman, it was my duty to serve others at my expense, because that is what I had seen my whole life. So I had to basically work with that wounding, because I had seen that happen. And I remember crying about it, like, having seen my maternal grandmother, who was brilliant and would be a night teacher and an entrepreneur, but also having heard stories, and she have told me stories how she used to have to also, on top of that, look after white children in apartheid South Africa, right? And just how little she was paid for that. And just that idea that it is my duty to serve others at my own expense and not be paid what I want to be paid, right? It's not even about deserving or worthiness, but what I believe my services should be valued at. Because I thought that's what you have to do. You have to keep giving and giving and giving, and somehow you'll be praised for
that. No, just the opposite, actually. That's what will happen. You will not be appreciated, actually. So let's do another pivot and talk about, you write in the book, What is Your Personality? About calling on our ancestors. I'm always talking to my ancestors. And so talk about how we can leverage their expertise and their wisdom, to heal our money trauma and other situations in our life.
Oh, I love that question. It's chapter 3 of the book. I interview my sister, who's a shaman, and we talk about that. So we are all born with trauma and wisdom from our ancestors, right? So there are certain things, if you are the kind of person that just wakes up and you just have a talent, maybe you're like, I know how to sew, I know how to bake. That is probably something that was passed on from generation to generation, especially if your mom just knew how to cook, your grandmother just knew how to cook, your great-grandmother just knew how to cook. You can literally connect with your ancestors through meditation, through talking to them, and ask them to send you wisdom and to send you that knowledge. So if you know what your ancestors were good at, this is what I teach people. It's like, if you know what your ancestors were good at in terms of making money, this is something that can be a complete game changer for you, how you build your business, because you can start to lean into that wisdom and start asking your ancestors to share that with you, either through dreams, just through dropping knowledge, through meditations. They can come through and share certain wisdoms with you, and then you can start to apply them in your everyday life. So an example, my first business, one of my many businesses failed, right? And I could not understand how to scale a business. And when I started Wealthy Money and I started working around ancestral money trauma and then tapping into ancestral money wisdom, one of the things I did was I started connecting with my ancestors. Like one day, like a pin, like something dropped. And I was like, wait, on both sides of my family, I come from entrepreneurs. The way that people have been able to make money, how I've been able to get the education I've gotten, hasn't been because people went and got jobs. If they had jobs, They had side hustles. They built businesses. So this is the way that I need to figure out what is it that is a key strength for my ancestors on both sides, so that I can utilize that. And then what is our key weakness? So the first thing that I started doing is I started having meditations where I would call on my ancestors and ask them questions, right? And I was reminded that, you know what, on my dad's side, we've always been advisors to kings and to royalty. So that means that we've always sat in on strategy meetings and we've been strategists. So perhaps that is a thing for you. You can help people become strategists and also look at the target audience that you are working with. If that is where your ancestral lineage is coming from, you can absolutely change the target audience that you are targeting, because this is the audience that you've always worked with in terms of your ancestors. That's who your ancestors worked with. And then on my mom's side, I saw that they'd always been salespeople. I had this really deep belief that I was terrible at marketing and sales, right? Terrible. I just thought I can't do it. But then my ancestors were able to show me that actually, no, these people have always been selling, right? And not only that, is that I also saw that on my dad's side, apart from being strategists, they were people that built systems in their businesses. I've never seen myself as a salesperson and a systems person. But when I tell you that I started working with my ancestors and was like, let me learn, I was able to then see, because they advised, go back to your childhood and see. Just remember, you've seen your parents through osmosis. You saw what they were doing in their businesses. How were they building their businesses? And how can you take all that knowledge and bring it into your business? And when I did that, I literally went from $2,500 a month in sales to like $10,000 a month in sales, and my business started to grow. So that was huge, huge for me. And it was interesting because I truly believed I sucked at all the things that I just mentioned, apart from strategy, right? I just thought I was sucky at systems. I was sucky at sales. But I just had to realize that those were things that were inbuilt within me. And maybe I just did things differently, but it didn't mean I sucked. I had that wisdom in me and I could tailor it to me as an individual. Oh, you're muted, Sabrina.
Yes, so let's get a little bit into the different money archetypes, the money personalities that you write about in the book. And I just sat with each one of them just to see where I aligned with. Talk about the sweet one.
Okay, so the sweet one is the one that most people will tend to confuse them for the breadwinner, because they give a lot financially to the family. They are sweet, but they are challenged with boundaries. Often the sweet one may get into debt, not for themselves, but in order to save the family. So they may take on debt in order to send money back home, in order to support the family. They are born, their karmic role is to be the glue within the family. And they don't always have to be sweet, hey? They can be really brash and abrasive, but you will know you are the sweet one because things kind of happen around you. When you get home, everybody comes home. People want to be around you. They want to flock to you, which is not the same as some of the other archetypes, right? So they are truly the glue within the family, but their biggest struggle financially is debt and being in debt for other people. Oh, another thing with the sweet one is getting into debt for spouses. Oh my gosh, especially women. They are so sweet. And people will be like, and I see it all the time on social media, what, you took out a loan for a man? Well, if they are the sweet one, they will do that because they are led by love. And that's why they have to be extra vigilant to really understand. And also they not only love, but they require lots and lots of validation and acceptance. And sometimes they use money to buy that acceptance and validation, right? So they have to be extra vigilant with themselves, that they are giving themselves that love and validation. but also not trying to fit in and keep up with the Joneses, and also just building those boundaries and working on their core wounding around perfectionism and not good enough.
Do you find that archetype shows up mostly in women, the sweet one, or men, or both?
Both. I wanted to say yes, but then I remembered I have a male client who's also a sweet one.
Okay.
Married to a fixer, and he's always like, oh my gosh.
So tell us a little bit about the fixer.
Okay, so the fixer archetype is actually their karmic role. They are born into the family to move a family forward financially. So most fixer archetypes, not always loved, where the sweet one is loved. And this is how I tell people to know if they are, because both the sweet one and the fixer can be the breadwinner, right? If your family cannot stand you and you are the breadwinner and you're sending lots of money home, you are probably a fixer, right? A fixer is they tend to be very controlling. They tend to, because they are here energetically to move the family forward. So they have the capacity and the energy. They are the most energetic of all the archetypes. They can move a family from poverty to literally upper middle class or upper class in one lifetime. A family that has a fixer archetype, and most families do, is extremely blessed, right? But the problem with the fixer archetype is that they can inflict trauma in their on their journey to build this generational wealth and to move the family forward. And by inflicting trauma, it's just by being controlling. So they can see the vision for everyone in the family more than others can see the vision for them, for themselves, right? So they are the ones that will be like, why aren't you getting a job? In fact, just go get a job, to the person that's maybe an artist and it's just like, I just want to pursue my art. Where the sweet one may be sitting down and trying to understand the artist, the fixer is like, how much money are you making from this? What is it bringing into the household? They are very money focused. And so people can confuse them as being more focused on money than actually the family. But they actually have to focus on the money side so that the family can expand. They're great in terms of money. They will really be in debt without having a plan on how to get out of debt. So a fixer won't get into debt and just not have a plan as to how to get out of debt. They tend to be very high earners, regardless of where they come from. They're able to literally create miracles and just move mountains and achieve incredible things in their lifetime. But sometimes it is at the expense of their own, I guess, closeness to the family because of how they do it, even though they do move a family forward.
So everyone, there are several other money archetypes that you need to review, just cast some inventory on your own life. That's in what's your money personality in the book. In the interest of time, as we're beginning to wrap up, you write in the book, Vangile, and thank you again so much for being here. This quote was very interesting. It's worth acknowledging, you write, that those who teach or equate wealth with, quote, high vibe, unquote, are usually from so-called developed nations with access to more resources, giving to exhaustion or broke, and are in the inability to say no. You talk about positive thinking. That doesn't necessarily equate to financial security or generational wealth. Could you speak to that as we prepare to wrap?
Yes. So what I have seen is this belief that is very, very pervasive, right? Sometimes in the West and in so-called, like I said, so-called developed nations, that people that are poor because they're just not thinking positively enough, that they're not grateful enough. And I find it very, very violent, to say to someone who is even right now in Palestine, right? To just be like, well, the reason why you have no running water is because the reason why you're not making money is because you're just not thinking positively enough. it's not to say that positive thinking isn't important on our journey, because it is certainly an important aspect, but it is not the only aspect, right? Gratitude is not the only aspect. There's also systemic trauma that I talk about that makes it impossible for us to get out of poverty. There's certain things like racism, sexism, there's wars, there are political struggles around the world that make it very, very challenging for people to move from one class to the next, that make it impossible for people to access education, access the internet, access just basic writing materials so that they can get themselves out of poverty. And so it's really, really important when we're talking about money that we start to look at trauma, and more than anything that we also start to look at the systems in which we operate in, which I talk a lot about in the book, right? Which is that systemic trauma is a very, very real thing, right? There are ways in which I feel many Black people around the world are oppressed, and it makes it hard for them to move, for all of us, myself included, to move from one class system to the next and to even access financial resources. And until we look, and if we don't look at that, we may actually be re-traumatizing people by making them feel like it is an individual failure. It is it's their own fault that they are not able to get out of poverty, or that they are not able to build wealth, when actually it is a systemic failure. And we need to start realizing that there's a difference between individual failure and systemic failures. And the system fails many, many people along the way.
Brilliant. I have been screaming that to the moon, actually, and back. As a, World of Money is an NGO, a nonprofit for children. Wakeza is a fintech that provides family financial services for Black immigrants. And so, as I say to my team, it's not about creating this one size Western fits all, particularly those who have immigrated from different cultures, different understanding, different gender roles when it comes to accessing, or this thing called financial inclusion. And if you ignore that, you're really ignoring their cultural norms, how they integrate or interact with money. And you're buying and you're building a system that no one asked you about or for or align with. But if you want to really include everyone in terms of this financial inclusion, you build with, not for, those that come from particularly non-Western, and maybe they're here second generation, but still the cultural DNA still is there. Could you speak to that?
Oh my gosh, I really, really love this conversation, right? Because there's actually this very interesting studies done on immigrants and money, which you probably know about, right? Which showcase how the first generation of immigrants come into a country and they're just building so that their kids can get a better education. Then the second generation gets a better education and they become your nurses, your doctors, your etc. And then their children become like bloggers and actors and artists and things like that. Why? Because now we have moved to the third generation that is a little removed from where they came from, but is now accessing the opportunities that are available in this new country. Where the first generation that came, right, didn't have access to that because they didn't understand maybe the language of the country. They were still too busy trying to integrate into the country. They were trying to just make sense of this new country. And sometimes because of the systems, again, their educational degrees weren't recognized in the same way as people that studied in that country, right? So they may come They may have been doctors in their countries, but then they come to this new country, say the UK or the US, and I've seen this so often, and they didn't study in the UK or the US, so their degrees are not considered at the same level sometimes, right? And I see it even here in South Africa. There's a woman who sews my bags. She's an engineer from Congo, but in South Africa, she can't get a job as an engineer, right? She's had to teach herself English, all those things. And it's just like, then her children will go and they now know this country, right? And now the system is starting to work a little bit in their favor. They can now access government grants because they are now born in the country. They are citizens of that country. They can access educational grants. They can get scholarships. They can study in that country. The language doesn't work against them. They now study in that language. They speak that language. It's second nature. They have the right accent. They're able to move and just get proper jobs. But they also going to be a bit risk averse because why? They know that they have to take care of their parents, right? Then this second generation, though, because now they've got access to all these things, will now also start building a little bit of a retirement nest egg. When they give birth to this third generation, that third generation knows that mom and dad are taking care of grandma and grandpa, right? And maybe sending money back home. They've got that. They've been figuring it out. And they've also got a nest egg. So now you've got more freedom to do as you want and then to pursue your own desires. And maybe your parents have also bought property. That second generation works on getting to financial stability because they saw their parents suffer. The third generation just saw their second generation integrating into the new culture and just working and being part of this new society. They don't have that memory of the very first generation.
Vangile, everyone, we just need to sit with this and replay this and read the book and then reread it again and again, because until we get this, all those other subjects, and yes, we teach those, but we start with unpacking, our community's understanding and relationship with money, because otherwise their spirits, their psyche can't even hear what you're saying, So Vangile can be reached through wakeza.com, but if there's another way that everyone can reach you, do you have any upcoming international retreats happening? What's going on? How can we reach you? And please come back again and again and again. But you're also an advisor at wakeza.com.
Yes, I am. So you guys can check me out at wealthy-money.com. I check out the blog. I've got over 200, or I think at this point, 300 articles. I also write very practical things like how to increase your credit score. I talk about like how to scale to extra streams of income, but I work primarily with money trauma because, as you can understand from this conversation, it's important. I do have a free 7-day tapping into ancestral money wisdom training. You can check it out at wealthy-money.com/training. Again, wealthy-money.com/training. And truly get the book, guys. I think it is quite awesome. All that we covered here is really covered more in depth in the book, except I talk more deeply about nervous systems and how to work with your nervous system and heal ancestral money trauma. Thank you, Sabrina.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. And we'll see everyone again, and make sure to like and share this broadcast, planetwakeza.com. See you again soon, Vangile.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.